Hey, wouldn't it be great if we never got tired, never got weary, never got stressed out, never wanted to quit or throw in the towel? But that's not the case. We are people who get tired, weary, stressed, fatigued. We want to give up. We want to throw in the towel. We want to do something different. And I believe God wants to encourage us to know that when we get weary, there's an answer. There's something that He wants to do even in our weariness. I was reading this morning a part of Elijah's life in 1 Kings chapter 19. And I was looking at his life and what he was accomplished. And man, he was a great warrior. But even Elijah was a weary warrior. He wanted to throw in a towel. He wanted to quit. He got distressed. In fact, great depression came on him where he wanted to even take his life. And so I just want you to know that you can get tired and weary and sometimes even depressed to the point of where you want to even, that you just want to leave this world. But it doesn't mean that God doesn't want to move in those moments for you. And if you're not careful, we can look at Elijah's life and say, man, my life does not compare to Elijah's life. You may be just a single mom or dad trying to make it through life. You may be a husband or wife and just trying to manage life, your career, trying to provide for your family. Maybe a student just trying to get through school and want to figure out what your life is like. And you may be doing your best to honor God, to live for God. And maybe even having to resist what's going on in the world, the culture that doesn't have a moral compass, and people are just doing what they want to do, and you know that some of those things are not right, but you stand in a place of living for God sometimes can be difficult and hard. Well, your life can be compared to Elijah, where God was using Elijah's life to bring Israel back on track. They were away from God, but God was using Elijah, and it was a very difficult task. I mean, he had a lot of opposition. And sometimes you and I, whether we're in ministry, whether we're trying to do right, trying to lead people, trying to lead what God asks us to lead, sometimes it can be very, very discouraging, and it can be very, very difficult. But there are some encouraging things that God wants to do for weary warriors like you, a weary warrior, that God wants to do something in your life to give you strength, renewed vision, renewed passion. Because you still have something to accomplish for God. And your life's accomplishment is just as important as Elijah's purpose. So here's a couple things I want you to see that Elijah did. First off, when we get tired and weary and stressed and we're just ready to quit, throw in the towel, we do what Elijah did. And that is we minimize God's strength, and we overestimate the strength of our enemy. That it really looks like we forget sometimes that God still has a purpose and a mission for us, that we forget that God wants to move right here, right now in the midst of this darkness or this hard place, and we underestimate what God can do and what He wants to do, and we overestimate the limitations that we're feeling. And Elijah did that, and sometimes we do that we overestimate the strength of our enemy. And God wants you to know that even in these moments where you feel wearied and tired, God wants to reveal Himself to you in a powerful way. And that's what God did. God, demonstrated His presence to Elijah. God wants to demonstrate, and I want you to look for ways around you where God is demonstrating His presence. God's presence will show up in so many different incredible ways. You may be just driving down the road. You may be just sitting and watching a movie, and all of a sudden God speaks to you. You may be talking to someone, and in that conversation that God makes Himself aware. You may be in a worship service or listening to a worship song, and God makes His presence aware. That's what He did for Elijah. He shows up in this small, gentle whisper. God wants to reveal, I think, your strength, that He wants to renew you as a weary warrior. Your strength is coming back as God's going to reveal Himself and reveal His presence in incredible ways to you. And thirdly, there was a new assignment that He gave him. Listen, one assignment in your life may be done, but the next assignment is very, very important that you transition to that you just don't throw in the towel or give up. There's new assignments, and sometimes even your current role, there's a freshness that God has for you. So even for me, I was praying about this year and the next year in 2024, and I said, God, here's where you have me, and this is what you've called me to do, but I need some fresh new assignments in my life. And God has been so faithful to redirect some of my purpose and some of my steps of where He wants me to walk in 2024. And you're no different. God wants to give you fresh and new assignments. It still may look the same. You still may have the same role, the same position, but there's going to be a refreshing of vision that God wants to give you. And I'm telling you, that new assignment, that refresh of vision and purpose is going to give you new strength again, just like He did for Elijah. And then also this assurance that He says, Elijah, you're not the only one. God is going to show you that there are other people that still have the same heart that you do, the same vision. They want to see God move in their life, and He's going to show you that you're not the only one. The enemy wants to isolate you and make you feel like you're the only one. And I'm telling you, God's telling you, you're not the only one. God's going to allow you to see that there are people who still have a heart for Him. And then fifthly, here's what God does, and I love this, is that God supplies ministry partners, friends that will come alongside. One of them was Elisha. That God brought Elisha into Elijah's life. And I love this, that God will send you people in your life that you don't have to perform. There's no expectations other than that God has assigned me to you, for me to help you. And in turn, you're going to help them. And there's no letdown. There's no walking away when the expectations are not met, or you do something wrong, or you upset them. Listen, God has people in your life that they're assigned to you to help you, and in turn, you're assigned to help them. And I love this. Elisha's name actually means God saved, that God literally saved Elijah's life purpose by bringing Elisha alongside of him. Here's what I want to tell you. Listen, I love this because Jesus told even Peter, He said, Peter, Satan wants to sift you as wheat. And maybe some of you weary warriors, some of you've been through a shifting. That word sifting is like wheat and chaff. It's wheat and then the chaff that gets kind of mixed in, they sift it. A farmer will sift the wheat, shake it to where it separates the chaff. Everything, all that light chaff, that shell that's around that wheat begins to surface so it can be separated. And maybe the shifting and the sifting in your life is to separate some things that have not been useful for you. But God is shaking and shifting some things, and the true purpose is coming out in your life. Man, I feel this for somebody, that your next season is going to be more purposeful. It's going to be more on point, because even the shifting that God has allowed in your life, it's bringing some of the purpose to you. You're going to walk into a renewed purpose this coming year in 2024. Here we are, we're still in November, but I'm already looking forward to 2024. Why? Because God is always forward looking, and He's always preparing you for the next season of your life. I want to encourage you. You may be a weary warrior today, but you're going to regain your strength. Here's what Jesus told Peter. Peter, I have prayed for you that your faith will not fail. I think that's an interesting prayer point that Jesus had for Peter. He prays for one thing. I pray that your faith will not fail. Your faith is so important for the next season of your life. So listen, weary warrior, come up with new strength. Get new strength going on in your life. Renew your vision and passion. Renew the presence of God in your life. Get your eyes looking forward, and let God lift your hands, and let Jesus, Jesus is praying for your faith that it will not fail.